Hello and welcome to today's European SharePoint, Office 365 and Azure Community webinar. My name is Shane and I'm delighted to be joined by Laurie Potmeyer, Microsoft USA, who will be talking to you today about my favorite Microsoft Teams features and how they've improved my collaboration, increased my productivity, and put a smile on my face. Remember to join in the conversation about today's webinar on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @EuropeanSP and our hashtag is ESPC20. Don't forget to check out the Resource Center. This is updated daily with the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. Simply visit sharepointeurope.com and click the content link at the top. Interested in taking part in ESPC 20 in Amsterdam this November? Call for speakers is now open at sharepointeurope.com, where you will also find details of our 30% ticket discount offer. After the webinar, we will have a questions and answers session. Type any questions you have in the questions window. Questions will be selected and answered at the end of the presentation. This webinar is being recorded and you will be notified by email when it is available. And now I'm going to hand you over to our webinar presenter, Laurie Potmeyer. Hello, Laurie.
Hello. How are you all? I hope that your day is going well so far. It is early for me, so excuse me while I get situated here. All right, hopefully you can see my slides okay. We will go ahead and get started. So my name is Laurie Potmeyer. I have been at Microsoft for 14 years, going on 15 years, which is pretty crazy to think. I am currently the Microsoft Teams community lead, which I think if you read any of my descriptions, I always say I think I have the best job in the world because basically I am a matchmaker for Microsoft Teams. So it's my responsibility to make sure that we have a robust community worldwide. And many of you attending today are part of that community. All of you are that community. So some of the things that I work on are the Microsoft Teams portion of the Microsoft MVP award. So those people who have earned the award of MVP, I work with them to make sure that they have the resources that they need to be successful in sharing Teams with the world and their own communities, as well as making sure that we connect them to our engineering team to absorb their feedback and make sure that we're connecting the community with our engineers as we build the product. I also work with the different community events that are taking place around the world. So sometimes you'll see me attending those in person, which I love doing because that's my way to connect with the community in person and have conversations and understand what you all are doing with the product and what you need in the product. And that helps me then go to our engineering team and really make sure, again, that we're connecting those dots and making sure that we're listening to what you're saying. And I have the opportunity to do several of those this year, so hopefully I'll see many of you at some of those events. And then I also keep an eye out on the Microsoft tech community. So the tech community, and we'll talk about that a little bit more too as we go through the resources today, but the tech community is our way, the engineering team's way of connecting with all of you on a large scale basis. So that's where you can ask questions and get answers to your questions, as well as share your knowledge. So some of you who are experts, or and I consider an expert somebody that's made a mistake and learned something and has something to share then with the rest of the world. And the Microsoft Tech Community is our option when we want to share that knowledge with other people or go in and answer questions. It's also the spot where we share our blogs. And so we have the office blogs, which is where you'll find a lot of the announcements. But in the tech community, we're able to have our engineering team actually write their own blogs and share with you their knowledge on features that they're working on and things that are upcoming to the product. So I keep an eye out on that as well and really pay attention to what everybody is doing there. So I hope you'll join me there as well. I also, just on a personal note, I do work remote, so you'll see it is dark in my office today, so I'm doing the best I can with the lighting here, so excuse that, but I do work from home 100%. I have an office that I go to when I need to, I'm actually 3 hours away from Bellevue, which is where the majority of our team is, though we have a lot of people worldwide. But the Microsoft Teams engineering team is in Bellevue, Washington. So I work from my home 3 hours south of our campus. And when I need to go into the office, I've got one here in Portland that's just about 45 minutes away. So I have the challenges of working remote. So some of the things that you'll hear me talk about today have a little twist in that, and how Teams has really improved the way that I collaborate and interact with the teams that I work with as far as being remote. I'm also a mom, a daughter, a friend. You know, I'm busy like the rest of you. I'm trying to make it all work. And so some of the things that I'm going to share today are things that Teams really has helped me with. So that's a little bit about me. I hope you'll connect with me there, Twitter and LinkedIn. And I'm going to start just by setting some context of my work life. And this will kind of help share a little bit of why I love the features that I love in Teams, why those things are important to me. So we'll start back in the 90s, if any of you remember working in the 90s, hopefully you do. I had my own office in the 90s. I wasn't in technology at that time. I had a big desktop computer, and I remember getting the laptop computer, which was huge, and I would lug that around. I think it was about 10 pounds. That was a big deal. I had email, but I didn't really use it too much. Not everybody had email at that time. We had a really wonky IM tool for instant messaging. We would instant message each other, but we just kind of played with it because nobody really used it for work, and we just used it internal because it didn't work really with anybody else. We can make it have voices and such. So that was fun. I had a desk phone. I had to check my voicemails every morning. I remember coming into the office, you know, I had to be there at 8, so I'd get into the office. First thing I'd do, I would check my voicemail using my desk phone, and there were usually like 10 voicemails. And then we had a receptionist who would take our messages, and she would write it on a little piece of paper and leave that on our desk for us, or put it in our box at the front. And we would get those in the morning when we came in, or throughout the day when we took a little break from our office. And I remember I didn't have a cell phone right at first, or I did, but it was really, really big. And so when I got a flip phone, it was a really big deal. And a luxury for me was being able to call in for my voicemails. Like, I remember the time where I didn't have to actually drive the half hour in to get to my office, but I could actually dial in to get my voicemails. And that was a really big deal at the time. So that's a little bit of history, maybe a history lesson for some of you who didn't live that life. Then we turned, you know, the year 2000. We went through the whole Y2K. Everybody was all right. Everybody survived. I remember I was at a different job by that time. I was doing high-tech recruiting for a little while, and some other things. So I had a cube. This is in the early 2000s. Of course, this is where I went to Microsoft. I think it was 2004 for my first contract position at Microsoft, maybe 2003. So I was in technology for the most of it. I had a cube. I got OCS, so that was like a legitimate instant message tool. I could actually use that for work. We had a shared drive, so all of our documents we could access, but they were on a shared drive, so we would navigate to that. And then, you know, there was no co-authoring or anything, but at least we could get to the same document as each other. I was finding more and more work on the web, so we would have more tools on the web. We would use the web a lot more than we did the 10 years prior. We really didn't go out there as much. I still had a desk phone that I used all the time. I started to get a headset, I think, there, you know, towards the middle of 2000. I was using computer audio. We used Live Meeting for our meetings. Still lots of voicemail. People were still calling, but of course, that's when we started the online meetings as well. Luxuries were similar, however, technology had evolved quite a bit by then. Smaller laptop was easier. I could take it home if I really needed to. I had a second monitor, which was really crazy because I could do two things at once. And I had a smartphone, which was pretty big at that time. It was, I think, one of the very first Windows phones, but I did have a smartphone and I used it more for personal things than I did for work at that time. And then 2010, which I feel like was just yesterday, but apparently we're 2020 now. So I'll go back 10 years. In 2010, we had so much going on, right? So many different tools, so many different resources, so many different, we have a cell phone, we've got a computer, we've got lots of different devices, we have home devices, personal devices, we have things for work. And so the difference, I think the last 10 years was just logistically, at the beginning of 2010, that beginning of that decade, I had an open office space. So I went from my own office to having a very private atmosphere where people knocked on the door to a cube where everybody could hear what I was doing, but they weren't in my space, to an open office environment at Microsoft where, everybody could see everybody and everybody was part of everything. So we went from Link to Skype for Business to Teams. So a lot of evolving with technology that decade. No more desk phone, lots of apps for everything. Everything had its own app. A lot of those things were on the cell phone. I'm always on, right? Everybody can always reach me, but nobody calls me. I stopped getting the phone calls and I was less reliant on my laptop because I had my cell phone. My luxuries became then power outages, snow days, and vacation time. Because I was always on, I was always connected, everybody could always reach me with these new ways of connecting. And then here we are in 2020. Pretty hard to believe, like I said. Now I work from home, so I'm back to my own office. But now I have Teams as the hub. And so though I have so many different places to go, so many different ways to connect, I have Teams as kind of my central workplace, which is different. I can control the hours that I'm on and off. I can use my quiet hours. Still, nobody's really calling me. When I do get a phone call, it's odd, usually a doctor appointment reminder, something like that. And I'm getting much less email now than I ever did before, of course, especially internally. And now, again, my luxuries, like I said, the quiet hours, having an open workspace in Teams, not logistically or not in person having an open workspace, but really having an open new way of working online. And the fact that I can now work from anywhere, that happened kind of the last decade. I started to be able to work from anywhere, but now truly I can do anything that I need to do. And I don't ever have to be in an office, or whether that's an actual office that I'm going to or my home office. So things have really changed. I want to talk about what's kind of a little bit about what Microsoft Teams is. I don't have a great handle on the audience today. I'm assuming most of you are at least familiar with Teams. But basically, Microsoft Teams is a true hub. It's a hub for teamwork, for teams that are working together, whether that's your own team or your team and external teams who are working together. It includes chat and everything that you need for threaded conversations and meetings. You can use video in your meetings and have the opportunity to chat and have meeting notes and keep everything for that meeting in one solid place. It includes meetings and video conferencing, PSTN calling, so you can dial out, not just person to person, but you can actually dial out externally and have a phone number with PSTN audio where people can dial into you as well. You can collaborate with others using the power of O365. So all the different collaboration tools are integrated into Microsoft Teams. So doing a lot with SharePoint and Stream for recorded audio, and lots of ways to interact and collaborate with your peers and external people as well. And then, of course, the ability to create and integrate apps for Microsoft Teams. So workflows that you have existing today, using not only Microsoft apps, but what are the line of business apps that you have and external apps that you may be using as part of your business today, and how do we integrate those into Teams? So we've seen a lot of integration as far as, HR apps or expense reports and different line of business apps, but then also external apps that you may be using as well. So we've got some fun things at Microsoft, for instance, being able to see what the menu is in the different cafeterias on campus, which is kind of fun, but those are the things that you can use internal once you're in Microsoft Teams and not have to go to 5 different websites. So Microsoft Teams is really a new way of working. We see it as almost an office and a water cooler in one spot, where teams are working together, but also communicating together and collaborating together. I want to go through, and I think I have 5 here. I started with 4, and then last night I added a 5th one. But I'm going to go through and kind of talk about, with Microsoft Teams, what are those things that I really love, and why do I love them? And I hope that by me sharing these things, you can take little nuggets of my work style and apply those to what you're doing or what your users are doing if you're working with other people. So I love the open workspace, and I'm going to tell you why. And this is really, when you're looking at user adoption, probably the biggest thing that people are scared of or worried about when they think of how they're going to work. Because the open workspace is scary to some people. We're basically putting ourselves out there. It's like we're opening the conference room doors to our meetings and letting everybody listen in. Right? We're not closing the doors and having just one-to-one chats or, close team meetings and then sharing those notes only with each other. We're basically putting everything out there within reason, but everything is out there. Our conversations are out there, our notes, our slides, people have access to everything. It is intimidating to know that everybody is going to hear that and see those things. And I think, we felt that a little bit when I moved to an open office environment where, all of a sudden everybody could hear all of my conversations, and how am I going to have any privacy? And I was really worried about that. But then the reality became that, wow, it's actually kind of cool being able to hear other people's conversations and have them hear your conversations, because now they get to see how you're interacting with people, and they may hear something that triggers a question for them, or I may hear them talking about something that I didn't even know they were working on, and now I can say, oh, I heard you talking about XYZ. How do I plug into that? Or, oh, I was talking to that customer also. Let me share with you my conversation, right? So there are things that just open up by sharing. And we saw that in an open office environment. To some of you may have moved to an environment like that. But now we're starting to see that with Microsoft Teams too. So that was a long-winded way of saying that I love the open workspace. I tell this story in almost every adoption talk I do because it is one of the scary things, being in an open workspace. Well, let me tell you something. I used to have to, if I used to have to track somebody down to ask a question about, who is the person that works on, I don't know, files. I want to talk with somebody about files in Microsoft Teams, because that's what I do. I'm working with a product every day. So by the way, don't be scared by the 101 hidden channels here in our Microsoft Teams team. This is actually a true screenshot of what the Microsoft Teams team looks like. But we have it organized so that every product, every feature within the product has its own channel. And so I am able to connect with people very, very easily there. I'm also able to see the conversations that are taking place within those topics. And that's really helpful for me. If I, in the past, wanted to find somebody that worked on files, I would email somebody that I might know because I am remote. So I may go to somebody that I know and say, hey, do you know who the PM is that works on files? And they would say, oh, you should probably talk to so and so. So I would go to so and so and I would email them and I would say, hey, I heard you might know who works on files. Is that you? And then I would get it out of office. They're on maternity leave, or they're on sick leave, or maybe they don't work there anymore. Could be a number of things that could lead me then to another couple days or a week of tracking the right person down. And eventually, as you can imagine, I will find my person, but I may have to go through a lot of back and forth, or somebody, oh, I'm so sorry, I missed your email. Oh, yes, talk to so and so. And then when I finally reach the right person, are they there? Are they available? So you can look at, kind of as I showed you the evolving work, or my evolving work, and how now Teams changes that. It's interesting because we used to have to pick up the phone, and then we used to have to walk to somebody's office, and then we had to use to email somebody. With Microsoft Teams, I literally go into this files channel and I say, hey, who's the person that could answer this question? And by the way, here's the link to the conversation that I'm trying to get the answer for. It may be in a totally different team, right? Maybe in the MVP team. Somebody's got a question about files and I don't know how to answer it. Who's the person that I need to bring into this conversation? And within minutes, every time somebody will respond. They may be the person, they may know the person, or they may tag the person that they know or that they think would be the right person for me to talk to. And then most of the time, they will also say, oh, let me go answer the question. They'll click on the conversation that I've linked to, and they'll just go and they'll answer my question. And then I'm like, that is something that used to take me hours, if not days, to accomplish. So that is a huge benefit, is just being able to go into a topic of conversation where I know my experts are and ask them the question. There's no stupid question. There's just, hey, who do I talk to? And I think at first that was intimidating for me, but as we've gone on, I've understood that, wow, this is a huge benefit and something that I'm really happy about. The other thing, working in an open workspace, because I am remote, it's hard for me to connect on a human level many times. I have to travel a lot. I always try to use video when I can to connect with people and just see, people's reaction and just connect with them on a more personal level. But having a fun stuff channel or some way to connect with people personally is really important to me. So for all the teams that I have, whether that's a community team or an MVP team or my own team, always have that element of fun in there, because people don't walk around an office in person with file folders in front of them not looking at each other, right? They interact with one another and share with one another and ask them about their weekend and smile and tell stories. And we need that virtually too. If we're going to sit behind a computer every day, all day, let's have an element of humanity as well and be able to share ourselves as people. So for me, having the fun stuff channel keeps fun at work, but also a dedicated channel for sharing birthdays and funny things that happen and wishing people well and seeing what people's vacations are. Keeping that in a separate place is really beneficial as well. And then finally, with the open workspace, is just being able to find things, because there is that collaboration and all of our files are stored and people have access to them, of course, unless we keep them private. That's a really huge benefit to me. So for instance, I worked on a conference, internal conference for women at Teams, and it was called Boost. This is a couple of weeks ago. And I needed to find the slides because I wanted to reference something. And I knew they had sent them out, but I wasn't sure where they were. And since I was a speaker there, I knew that I had access to that. So I just did a real quick search in the search bar within Teams and said Boost conference, and everything related to Boost conference came up, whether that was conversations, files, things that we worked on together, and there it was. And I didn't have to go searching around. I didn't have to click on Teams. I didn't have to click on channels. I didn't have to go to SharePoint. Didn't have to search through my email. I just put in Boost conference, and there was a slide deck that I needed. And that's in somebody else's OneDrive, but I'm able to edit and collaborate within that. So again, open workspace can be scary, but the benefits far outweigh those. So number two, things I love, the mobile client. For those of you who use the Microsoft Teams mobile client, I think you will agree it is fabulous. You can do everything that you need to do from your mobile phone. You don't have to have your desktop, which is great. I can look at things really quick if I'm in a doctor's office, or if I'm, waiting for my kids to finish practice and I have a couple of minutes in my car. I can just look quickly and get things done. And I love that I don't have to log into my email and type a big long email. I can just shoot somebody a quick response or ask a quick question, or even just view what's going on in Teams. So I appreciate that very much. Also being able to attend a meeting and see the content. Sometimes if I'm running late, or if I'm somewhere where I can't really talk, but I really want to be able to view the content, see what's happening, as well as listen to the audio, I can do that from my mobile phone. Same with presenting. If I'm in an airport and I need to present, but I don't want to get my laptop out, or I'm not in a spot where I can do that, or maybe I don't have Wi-Fi and I don't want to connect, I'm able to present with video, even just like I'm there from my cell phone. Work-life balance can be tough when you're always connected. So with a mobile client, you can set your quiet times. You can do that on the desktop too, but with a mobile client, I can decide when and where I get my calls, or I can turn that off when I want to not get notifications if I don't want to see them. But I can get my calls anywhere I am without doing anything special. So if I want everything to go to Microsoft Teams to get notified, and when I have a phone call, I can do that. But I think the most important thing is it just works. So for those of you who are using Teams who have not loaded the mobile client, I urge you to do that, especially if you have multiple tenants that you may be working with. Super easy on the mobile client as well. So definitely urge you to do that. I in the slides have some additional resources there for you. So number three, I thought the day would never come where I was able to talk about private channels, but here we are. I understood the need for private channels. I thought when we started listening to people talk about it, I didn't really think I'd ever use them, because I had gotten into this way of working where everything was just public. And why would you want private channels? Because if we're really truly going to be opening up and having an open workspace, and putting our conversations out there, and putting our documentation out there, and having conversations about what we're doing, then there really was no need for private channels. But what I found is that though I don't really have to have private channels, I really like having private channels. Let me tell you how I use them in two different ways. And so I think it really depends on what you are trying to do. You have to think of, what am I really trying to accomplish, and do I need the channel to be private? And I would say 99.9% of my channels are not private. They are open and public. But I wanted to share a couple of examples of how I use my private channels. So one, the first screenshot here is Microsoft Teams Airlift. So this is an event that we did for partners and MVPs earlier this fall. We're going to be doing it again. The event, everybody who attended the event and all the Microsoft speakers who were part of the event were part of this team. And this enabled us to collaborate with everybody who was coming, to update them, to give them the schedule, to talk about their questions that they may have on the different sessions. We had a fun stuff channel you can see. We did two, one in Amsterdam and one in Bellevue. So that was our way of interacting as a group with everybody, asking questions, answering them, posting notifications, and so on. But what I wanted to do is have a spot where the speakers had access to the slide deck, that they had all of their reminders, they knew everything that was going on within the airlift team. And that was important to me because though all of the speakers were from Microsoft, and I could have probably used our Microsoft Teams team and gone to the event channel to have these conversations and talking about airlift completely away from airlift, I didn't want to do that. And let me tell you why. I wanted our speakers to be a part of what was going on with airlift. I wanted the Microsoft people who were traveling to Amsterdam and the Microsoft people who were there in Bellevue, who were going to be talking with all of these people, to understand what was going on with the event, to have visibility into the fun things that we were doing, to have visibility to the questions that were being asked and the conversations that were being had. I wanted them to get to know the people that were attending. So instead of having them in the Microsoft Teams team, I wanted to bring them into our airlift team and be a part of that. But I also wanted to be able to share the reminders and the things that not everybody need access to, right? Like be here at this time on this date. Those are the types of things. So I created a private channel for airlift speakers and on we went. It was great. They interacted with people in the airlift team, and that worked very, very well. The other way that I use private channels is in our community leaders team. The community leaders team is a team that I have set up for people who are doing events around the topic of Microsoft Teams. So similar to SharePoint conference, two that are shown there is Commsverse, which is coming up in April in the UK, as well as the European Collaboration Summit, which is happening in June. Both of which I will be at. So I want a way where I can talk to, excuse me, just those event organizers about what we're doing at the event logistically, that not everybody within that Microsoft Teams community leaders team needs to know about. So there's probably about 200 people in that team, mostly people like you, people who are organizing user groups around the world or interested in doing virtual events. So again, that is actually a team that if you have your own user group and you have your own community event, let me know if you want to be a part of that. It's just a way that we share content and talk about best practices for doing these events and talk about what's upcoming, if people want to be speakers at your event, so on. But I do have instances where I want to talk about, Microsoft priorities at these events, or, talk about the different PMs or people who will be traveling to the event, and just talk about hotels and logistics that not everybody on that team needs to know about. But instead of creating a brand new team for Commsverse or for ECS, I created a private channel within that team because that's where those people already are. That's where they're already talking about things related to Microsoft Teams and the events with me. So I created those private channels for the less than 10 of us to just collaborate in. That enables us also to post documentation related to those events, or have our own tabs set up within those channels. So there's a lot we can do. We could set up a private chat and just have like an ongoing chat with those of us. But the nice thing about having that private channel is that I can also have documents in there. So I can give them drafts of my slides, for instance, and we can collaborate that way. we could also do that in email, but again, that drops the collaboration piece. So it really helps us kind of stay connected in that way. So that is a way that a couple ways that I use private channels. App integration, just to kind of know what I would do really without a cell phone every day. I can't imagine having Teams without the apps. I've gotten really accustomed to using Teams as my hub. And so having things like all the Office apps in there, Excel, PowerPoint, like I showed you with searching for documents, they're there. I can make edits in them within Teams. I don't even have to open them if I don't want to. I have the ability to bring them and open them up natively on the desktop, but I can also make edits right there within Teams as well. So that's really, really easy. I don't have to go around and do a lot of searching for what I'm looking for. So that's been a great thing. Planner is something that we use as well. So being able to keep a schedule of our blog posts or, the different projects that we're all working on together. Planner has been really helpful as well. And like I said earlier, the line of business apps that you can put into Microsoft Teams are really helpful. That and just being able to trigger things like having your Twitter feed roll into Microsoft Teams as well. You can create a channel to have things like that. So really great app integration and a lot of opportunity for organizations to create their own line of business apps or their own new apps to include in Teams, whether that's for themselves and looking at, what are the workflows and the processes that we use today and what can we build to integrate into Teams, or what are those solutions that we think everybody would benefit from, and let's create an app to make public and have an app store. So a lot of opportunity there for people, but really for me, just personally, my productivity has increased because I'm not having to go to multiple places to do things. I can stay all within Teams, and that's been a big time saving for me. So save this message. I'm not sure how many of you use save this message, but for me, save this message is something that saves me. I love this feature because there is so much going on in Teams. You have multiple teams. Within those teams, you have multiple channels and you have multiple conversations going on. There is a lot. And for somebody that's new to Teams, it can be overwhelming, especially trying to figure out, oh yeah, somebody asked me a question and I don't remember where I saw that. Yeah, I can search for that. But what are really the tasks that I need to accomplish? One of the things that I do in the morning is I go through my activity feed and I look at everything that people have tagged me in, or where they have asked me a question directly. So, really first and foremost, I go through my instant messages and I go through and I respond to the ones that I can respond to quickly. The ones that I cannot respond to, this is actually another feature, I like to keep it as unread so that I know that I need to respond to that. But what gets lost are the channel messages. When I do get tagged in something, I don't know if that's actually an action for me or if that's something that people have tagged me in as an FYI. So tagging is really important, but being able to know what I need to act on is also important. And so save this message is an option that you can do by clicking on the three little dots. So in the screenshot, the three little dots up there on the top right, you just choose the drop downs and choose save this message. And what that does is it creates a flag. This is important. I need to follow up on this. And then when I'm ready to go and look at all my tasks, I can just go and there by my profile and click the saved little word saved there with the flag, and then that will show me all of my flagged items in my or my saved items that I flagged in my activity feed. And so I really love that because it's basically a to-do list for me. So it's similar to flagging an email or something like that. And so I just love that. It helps me kind of know what I need to act on, and you can unflag them, you can click on them and unsave them and get them out of your queue very easily as well. So you can have an up-to-date list of your action items there. So I've gone through the 5 things that I love, but then I made this list and I was thinking, oh my gosh, there are so many other things that didn't make the cut, but I think are really important. So really quick, tagging. Like I said, if you don't tag people, they don't know that you need them. So tagging is really important. Be sure that whenever you need action from somebody, you don't just ask the question. And this goes in a channel conversation as well as an instant message. Instant message is a little bit more obvious because it's one-on-one, but as people get busier, this can be something that they even miss. So tagging people, really, really important. And even if you've been in a conversation with that person in the channel already, and you think that they're going to just see your response, don't assume that, because they may have multiple teams, multiple channels, and even multiple tenants. So being able to tag them notifies them that you need something from them, or if it's an FYI even, but you really need them to see it, be sure to tag. And that saves me. That's really how I have too many teams and too many channels and too many things going on. So if I'm not tagged, I assume that it's not something that I need to look at. Reordering teams. So being able to move my teams around is helpful for me. There may be a project that has its own team that when the project is done, I don't really need to keep an eye on it like I did at one time. However, I need to access things. So moving it down in the order list there is helpful for me. So just know that you can click on your teams and move them around, and that's a really useful thing if you have lots of them going on. Also finding the recording of a meeting within the meeting and continuing the meeting notes. So when I'm in a meeting, in a Teams meeting, and after it ends, I can see everybody that was there, of course, and then I can see the meeting notes and continue to have the conversations with that group in somewhat of a group chat. But then also the recording is right there too, the stream recording. So I can look at the file right there in the meeting conversation, click it. So if I have to leave a meeting early, maybe I missed the end of it, I just like to know that I can go to that meeting again within the conversation, and there's the recording right there for me. So super helpful as well. Marking things as unread, again, that's really how I manage my own work. So if there's a conversation that or an instant message from somebody that I'm having a conversation with and I need to act on it, I will just mark it as unread even after I see it, so that I know to go back to it later in the day. And then something kind of new is the viewed icon. So looking to see if somebody saw your messages, they can, you can see a little viewed icon. I should have put a screenshot of that there, but you can actually see if they saw it. And that's helpful because then you can start your badgering, right? Like they didn't get back to you, you know that they saw your message. So it is helpful for me because I can say, hey, I, need your action on this. Or I can ping them and say, hey, I don't think you've looked at my message yet. Have a look, because I have a question for you. Or maybe then I decide to tag them. That's actually a good practice, is if somebody's not responding to you in instant message one-on-one, and put it in the team and just tag them in the team. And that's a good practice for everybody. Just as we go through this kind of new way of working, having things open and out there is a really good way to work. Just being able to have your conversations out there for everybody. And one benefit of that is that people learn from each other. A lot of times we aren't the only one that has a question, so pinging somebody for a question one-on-one is great for you, but it doesn't share your knowledge or share the other person's knowledge. So being able to put a question out there, not be afraid to ask that question, knowing that somebody else has the same question too. And I've seen I've definitely seen that in action. So would urge you to ask the questions and just put it in the team. And then also a lot of times people know the answer that you didn't ask one-on-one or weren't in the chat, and they can help you. So it's another benefit as well. So, hey, there's a lot going on. 4 things I'm most excited about, and I'm excited about a lot. I will tell you, so there are so many. I had to narrow it down to 4. I put the what's new link there so you can see what is coming. You can also go to your Teams client, and down in the very bottom of your Teams client, you'll see a little question mark icon on the bottom left-hand side, and that will enable the option to see the what's new as well. It'll take you to the same link, so you can actually view what's new within your team client. But there are some great things that have just been released, and we keep that updated. I think it's like every week or every other week, so you can see what's coming. And some of the features that are being rolled out are, you know, your IT pro who's managing your team's deployment can turn things on and turn things off. So you won't always see everything. But it's a good list of things just to know what's available and out there. But 4 things I'm most excited about. 1, multi-window, being able to pop out the chats, meetings, calls, or documents. This is something that has been asked for quite some time. I'm actually using it in an early release right now. It's wonderful. I think you'll all love it. This was talked about at Ignite as something that we're working on. So it's really nice to be able to be in a meeting, but also be able to have a one-on-one chat going on in the background. I can have a document open as well. So those multi-window, the multi-window feature is great, and I'm really excited for that to come to GA. The other thing is presenter and attendee rules for improved meeting control. So for many of you who create meetings and are holding meetings with multiple people, you'll know that being able to mute people is really important. Learning who can advance slides, controlling that, who can start and stop recording. Those are all controls that we have continued to improve upon, and there are more things coming. So the presenter and attendee roles, really wonderful for those meetings that maybe aren't quite ready for the Teams live meeting, where you can actually present one-to-many and have everybody muted, but somewhere in the middle where you need a little bit more control than just a small collaborative meeting. Polls and surveys, being able to ask and channel conversations, that's going to be really exciting. And then finally for me, tasks and teams. You heard me talk about Planner, you heard me talk about being able to save conversations and have kind of your own task list within Teams. But I am so excited for tasks in Teams, and I put a link to the video there. We don't have time to play it, but having to do and Planner together in Teams is going to be a lifesaver for me. So that's something that I'm really excited about, because I can have my email tasks as well as my Teams tasks and everything that's in Planner all together, and that's really going to help increase my productivity as well, and have not multiple lists around, including my sticky notes that I'm infamous for. So those are some things that I'm really excited about. You know, we have gone through this long 3 years, short 3 years, however you want to look at it. You know, the reality is Microsoft Teams is so new. We have my list of, I wish we had, you know, there's all this, I wish we had this, I wish we had that. That list is definitely getting smaller and smaller for myself, and I'm sure many of you. But we know we still have work to do. The product is still very young, and one of the things that I hope that all of you know is that we really don't build the product in a vacuum. Microsoft Teams is very interested in what all of you have to say about the product, what are the features that you need, and more importantly than even just the individual features, or what are the business scenarios that you're trying to solve for. What are the things that you're trying to do, or those things that you do today that you wish you could do in teams, or you wish you could do better in teams? We really do listen to you, and there's a few ways we do that. One is the Microsoft Tech community, which I talked about a little bit earlier, and I do urge you to go be part of the community. There's over 100,000 people just in the Microsoft Teams community within the MTC. But you can also go and visit all the Microsoft products and services there and ask questions, answer questions. It's a really good way for those of you who are not maybe ready for speaking at conferences or user groups to be able to go and give back to your community and answer questions. So that's a place where we can just kind of see what's going on. It's not the best place to give your feedback because we don't track it formally there. It's a really good way to have conversations and ask your questions. But feedback, we'd like you to go to User Voice. So that's where we track all of our items that we know all of you are looking for. And we have a team that specifically takes those user voice items and merges them with the other listening channels that we have. And we have regular meetings monthly or more with all of our feature teams where we look at what the community is saying. What's everybody saying? What are they looking for? Why do they want it? What are they trying to do? Like I said, the business scenarios that they're trying to solve for. So we definitely look at those. I urge you all to, when there are features that you wish you had, please include them in the user voice, and you can see what the status is of those, and see what people have said before, and even tag on to what people have already requested. And then our community events. So the events like we're doing today virtually, and all of the in-person events and user groups, there are MVPs and Microsoft people attending those events all the time. So please use your resources and talk to those people and make sure that your feedback is heard and that you're sharing that with somebody. Those are also great ways to connect with others who are passionate about the products that you're passionate about. So please visit those events and be a part of it when you can. I put the AKA link there for the community events. That's a really great way to filter for the products that you're interested in and the regions that you live in or the communities that you're in, so you can see what's going on in your area. So always push people there as well. But I do want to drive home that comment. We really do love our community and are so thankful for the involvement that people have had in making Microsoft Teams better. So please continue to use those resources. And then finally, some Teams resources for you. I put the AKA links up here, so hopefully you can get to those easily. But we've got, where to ask questions, where to give feedback, training resources, what's coming on the roadmap. So you can sort that again by all the O365 products. What's new, what has just been released. I talked about being able to view that in product, but there's also the Teams What's New link if you want to see what's just come out. Where to go for technical documentation and rollout if you're somebody that's rolling Teams out or looking to increase adoption within your organization. You can go to the Teams Toolkit. We've really tried to make everything very customizable there for you as well, so you can take those resources and make them your own. But most importantly to me, join your local communities, share your knowledge, bring a friend. If you're ever going to a user group or a different event, please be sure that you take somebody with you and introduce them to the community, because sometimes people are a little bit nervous to go to those things by themselves, but if they have a buddy to go with, it's much easier. So with that, I think we are nearing the end of our time, but we do have a few minutes, I think, for questions and answers. I wanted to share my Twitter there as well as my LinkedIn. I thought about maybe starting a blog. I don't know, all the MVPs that I work with and so many of you in the community have your own blogs. And so maybe they're on LinkedIn sometime soon. I'll start doing that. But you can see what I'm up to on Twitter, the different events that I'm going to, the different events that Microsoft is involved with Microsoft Teams. And then I try to share kind of some of the fun things that are coming out, new features there, as well as tips and tricks. So connect with me there too. But I guess we'll open it up for some questions and answers the last 5-6 minutes that we have.
Thanks for a great presentation, Laurie. Yes, we will now start the questions and answers part. And should you wish to ask a question, please type it into the questions window now. Okay, we have quite a few questions in, Laurie. Every time we cover
Oh,
Teams, there's always loads of questions. So we'll try and get through as many of these as we can. But obviously, as you said, people can reach out to you if needs be, if they need to follow up.
absolutely.
Okay, great. First question. Is it possible to delete a meeting recording?
Yes, you manage that within Stream. So all the recordings that are done through Microsoft Teams are managed within Stream. So you can manage that there. You can share it. You can download it if you wish to download it for your own personal use and delete it from Stream. You can do that as well.
Great. A good few questions in around this same question. Is it possible to run such webinars over Teams? Like, could we have done this webinar through Teams?
That is a great question. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I would love to see the next event actually run on Teams. Like I said, we have a couple of different options. So one is a Teams, just a Teams meeting, right? And that's usually like maybe some of you have done with Skype for Business, where it's just a small collaborative meeting. There's a ton of opportunity for you to talk to one another, see each other on video, share documents, and be able to collaborate. Maybe you're working on a project together or something. And you don't really have a ton of need to manage your audience. But then you can also do a live event, and live event within Microsoft Teams offers you the maximum control, right? That's where you're presenting one to many. You want it very controlled. You don't want anybody to ever open up their audio. You want to completely manage it. In fact, nobody even has to know that there's anybody else on the call. It could be one person, it could be 0 people, it could be 2,000 people. So there's lots of opportunities there. But what I mentioned is there are so many more features coming to Teams that will help you in a Teams meeting be able to control the audience a little bit more, so that you can have a more structured event that has maybe 50 or 100 or 200 people, but still keep it under control, not have anybody mess anything up. So yeah, lots of opportunities there for meetings, and definitely urge you to try them out if you haven't already.
Okay, great. I can't see how to set up meetings. Is it just using the call feature?
If you're just using the call feature,
Yeah, the person says, I can't see how to set up meetings. Is it just using the call feature?
no, so you can just use the call feature if you just want to dial out to somebody, but there's a couple different ways to set up a meeting. One is you can use the Outlook plugin, and I use Outlook to schedule my meetings still because I'm used to the Outlook calendar, and in Teams, the calendar is a little bit different. You can see it week to week right now. So I use Outlook to schedule my meetings. And so like if you had Skype for Business, you would have the plugin. You can do the same with Teams. So you can open up an Outlook meeting and then make it a Teams meeting. So you can manage it from there. The other thing you can do is you can schedule a channel meeting. So you can actually schedule a meeting while you're in Microsoft Teams as well. And so that's an option for you as well. A channel meeting will invite those you select or anybody that has access to that channel. So a couple different ways that you can schedule, but yeah, it's within your own Teams client or within Outlook.
Okay. What, according to you, is the minimum requirements to move on from tools like instant messaging to actually create a Microsoft team to collaborate? What is the tipping point to move to Teams?
The tipping point to move to Teams for just as a solution all up, or can
They
you read the
didn't
question again?
specify. Yeah, I can reread the question. So it goes, what are, according to you, the minimum requirements to move on from tools like instant messaging to actually create a Microsoft team to collaborate? what is the tipping point
Hmm.
to move to Teams?
Okay, I see. So that's a really good question. And I think there's no simple answer for that. It depends. But the way that I understand the question is, I could have a one-on-one chat going on or a group chat going on. But at what point do I then make that conversation a team? And I think it really depends. In a group chat, it's a threaded conversation. So you're having a conversation that just keeps going and going and going. But once you get to the point where you need to have separate conversations on different pieces of that project, that's when you move into a team. So it may be a group of you thinking about working on a project together or coming up with a project or having an idea and iterating on that idea. And that may be a group conversation or a group chat. But once you get to the point where that's solidified and I say, okay, yeah, now we're going to move forward with this, we're going to have weekly meetings, then, let's formalize this and make it a team. And maybe then you create channels for the different categories that you're working on. So you may continue the group chat and have conversations, in which case I suggest moving that to the team, because when you start bringing new people on to talk about that same topic, then they'll have visibility to past conversations, which will provide them context to what you're working on. So I think once you have different topics, or it's not just a temporary conversation, you're going to continue this conversation, that's when you move it into a team. The other piece is collaborating. Sure, you can share a slide deck or you can share a document within a chat, but being able to have a place where that lives longer term, and having conversations around those documents or those things that you're working on is much easier to do when you've got a channel within a team.
Laurie, we have loads of questions, but unfortunately we're out of time. And thank you
No
so much for getting up in the middle of the night, literally, to
problem.
to
No,
join us here at
this is
during
great. Do
Teams
I have
Week.
a way to answer the remaining questions offline so that people can get their answers?
Okay, so I'll copy and paste them out for you, and I'll send them over to you. How about that? And
That's
then
great.
when we post the webinar online, I'll have the questions and answers listed in the post. So
Excellent.
yeah, because we have about another one, two, three, four. We've about another 6, 7 questions to get through, so we're not going to get there unless we hold on to you all day as well. And that's great. So Laurie, on behalf of the ESPC community, thank you again for taking the time to complete this webinar. We really appreciate it.
You're very welcome, and thank you so much for having me. I look forward to meeting many of you in person soon.
Great. Thank you, Laurie.
Thanks.
Okay, everybody, we'll just get back here. So, as we mentioned, if you're interested in taking part in ESPC 20 in Amsterdam, check out our call for speakers, which is now open. And we also have our 30% ticket discount offer. Simply sign up at sharepointeurope.com to get your coupon code to make your purchase on Thursday, the 27th of February. Tomorrow, join us again for Teams Week as we continue our series of webinars. Join Stefan Bisser and Thomas Goels. They're both MVPs and they will be talking about Microsoft Teams and the bot framework, a developer's perspective. This is the end of today's webinar. Please see sharepointeurope.com for further details on all upcoming webinars or visit the Resource Center for all previous episodes. A big thank you again to Laurie Potmeyer for joining us today. Thank you all for joining us. Take care and goodbye.